Shit.
Can you hear? Can you hear?
전체 당고지 다 미답을 고소하고 아니 대다 제미 디제미다 다음 미답아 대다 디시도 할수 미답아 시도다 아니 저 주전의 진비다 이제 계제시도 다 가봐도 내줘요 다 디계제시도 그런 주전에다 경기 계제시 경기 나오는 그런 주전에 있는 뭐보다는 내가 저기 땡키고 잡지 땡키고 좀 신도 주대요 근데 제가 이나니 미다버스 있다 이제 가버도 잡아도 야 미다버스에 그거도 근데 지내요 또 거다지 이제 위해서도 있어
Now, with respect to His Holiness's teachings today, His Holiness taught the first chapter of the different chapters. So the first chapter basically presents impermanence. So in order to, again, as here presenting, is giving some explanation that connects to impermanence. Now, when talking about impermanence, it means that an object, merely by way of its establishment, merely by reason of the fact that it exists, it disintegrates. So it's something that goes out of existence, something that ceases to exist the moment it has been produced. So therefore, this indicates that in the future, it will no longer be there. It will be there for a while, but it will get out of existence in the future. So this explanation basically indicates or seems to indicate that impermanence is a negative phenomenon. It implies something negative. However, from a positive and affirmative kind of aspect, impermanence refers to that which is changing. So it has a non-affirmative aspect and it has an affirmative aspect.
다디 미다마다 또 베타스 기지 시기에 가지나 가지 저기다 세마기고 요에 뭐지 니만 말티지 중소 가자티지 중소 케니가 티지 중소 이 섬레나는 야니 세마기고 요데도 콘도사에도 쇠디로 그에디 나서 가자티지 중소 케니가 티지소는 퀸지나 콘도도서 다다 하게 차대 뭐 저 디지디스는 뭐변에 셀라 단 미다바 가비 계지 어디잖아요. 이참 가사다. 거의 왜냐면 미치 있었어요. 내게 치두자지 나면은 아니 치두자지 다다 가요. 그거 아니 그 콘도산이 되지는 콘도도 다다 가요. 가사 괜히다 말 두자 나면은 이나 다다 마 콘도산데 세모지 원자 되대. 그만 두자 나서 이네 콘도도 다다 가요. 그게 콘도 가사 요만 아니 그 이치 두자도 다 가요. 그 리고딩 제는 때 사요. 리고딩 제는 나가 예산 잘 사요만. 어디는 신지기다 데뷔니츠 스스로 강에 제리유 강에 좀 가사다. 가상 다 드리는 주제 답로 인지. 단 니츠 가르치면 참 가사다. 제요만 들려다. 이다고. 제 디섬로지 땅데. 안 디가다 너무나 아니 완전히 용식이 있습니다. 남도체 마음바디에 그토베기 발생기 엔티니티니 다샤 다다 가요. 요만 마음바 제선단 당지는 대마마 마음바 제수도 주기지 시고 대마마 동다리 기지 시고 주주도 마기 시고 강들이요. 마음바디 단다 기규래 다 대바디 가사래 다 세마지고 채나다 롱나다 다 기티니시 유면은 다데니시 기래 다행이니시 디에다 되게 주제당에 나보다 제가기 제기 내지들에 디에 까마가진다 끼지직 저지나 봐도 내지디 신대지기 내다 고도기 내다 신하기기 내다 계산이다 끼지직 유나 봐도 요만다 진짜 디기 삼도 단단히 야부지 땅 있잖아요 아니 이 다다 내주로 참아지 그런 것이 뭐지 강에 뭐지 책 나기 강에 제 번주 강에 제 안디는 코로나잖아 아니 와셔버진 레디잖아 쾌디 나와있어 다가나 삼다지 콜레레 차스 세베
about impermanence from the point of view of the negation of something non-affirmative, from the point of view of ceasing? Well, basically if we say, okay, so phenomena are merely designated by conceptual consciousness. So then when we talk about our mind not being happy, saying, I don't feel happy mentally. Before a problem arose, there was a problem before, there was a problem yesterday, there was a problem the day before yesterday. So one keeps thinking about this and keeps keeping these problems in one's own mind. So some person said this to me, they've done this to me, so they were angry with me, they showed resentment towards me. So in that case, although in reality, because everything is impermanent, this situation is long gone, there's a sense that this verbal abuse, let's say for example, we got verbally abused, there's a sense that those negative words are still hovering around, they're still there. But Geshe-la is asking, so where is it? Where are these words? So if another person gets angry with us, where's that anger now? So there's a sense it's still around, so we're still unhappy. But the anger and the resentment from another person, they're no longer there. So of course, if we had recorded whatever verbal abuse had been given to us, then maybe there's something to say about the words are still around. But in actuality, the actual words are no longer there. So the past is all gone. Everything that happened before 1 p.m., everything that happened before p.m. is no longer there. It's all gone. So we should think along those lines. Likewise, with regard to the future, we may have worries with regard, we may have fear and worry with regard to the future, but the future has not yet happened. It is merely designated by our awareness. And this is why, according to the lower philosophical systems, they would say that the past and the future are not established substantially because they haven't happened yet or they're already gone. So in that sense, whatever anger has been shown, whatever anger, whatever resentment we experience from others, it's no longer there. Even what happened at 1 p.m., now it's 1:30, now it's 1:30, whatever happened around between 1 and 1:30, it's all gone. In fact, everything just remains for one moment. It's just a short moment that phenomena remain, and then they disappear. So we should think about this really well. And Geshe-la said that a friend of his, one of the retreatants in the mountains, he has an acquaintance who experienced a lot of problems, a lot of difficulties. And a friend of this acquaintance told him exactly, of that person told him exactly this. It's all gone, it's all gone. And the same explanation helped him to be able to deal with this problem, to put his mind at rest.
다 그루에 토는 기지 시비나 아니 다 그루와 잡아지는 저기 세미나 토그래 다 정신 그게 저희 그루와 치료를 넘어서 많이 정신 그런 그루와 주의 정신에서 대지 모두 간다 바이 딜라에 가르스는 규단 깨는 되는 계획도 없어 다 규단 깨는 되는 계획은 그루와 줘봐야 가르스는 베나타 사변도 지요이나 딜라 아니 가서그래 슈다 다 류다 다 저다 디저기 아니 사베디 켄체로 사베디 무게 켄체레스 켄체레 라이가 가서 디 드로치 단요 슈디 파게타 레바트스 차고디 있는 누구디 깨도 말아야 안 저기 주미 뭐지 가지 군지 그로지 땅과 인서 아니 신이 켄체 계제디 레버레 그로치는 땅에나 아니 켄체스 계제디 요마로 그렇게는 마다니 kiến 제베이나 사베데샤 추데가 지그로 디kiến 두면도 가르스 콜 그로단 거 아마 제선 그겐기 기제디 시친제 딱콜 그로단에 기제디 코 마시르 시차도 그런 중점의 규율을 신도 좀 되죠. 신코라 뭐 나세이나 치료 뭐 간다 근데 그겐기 기친제 규율을 신도 좀 되죠.
And then talking of impermanence from the point of view of change, so from the point of view of the momentary change. So with regard to this, well, the coarse kind of change, the coarse kind of transformation, this we can know clearly. We ourselves can clearly know this. But on the subtler level, there's a natural, constant change taking place. impermanence. So any phenomenon, any functioning phenomenon, any conditioned phenomenon depends on causes and conditions. In other words, it arises, it is generated in dependence on causes and conditions. But why? Why does it have to change? If something depends upon causes and conditions, why does it have to change? So Geshe-la gave the example of a seed. If you take a seed, for instance, in order for that seed to grow into a sprout, you need conditions, cooperative conditions such as water, fertilizer, warmth, and so forth. So these are the kind of conditions that enable the seed to grow into a plant. But they can only serve as the conditions of that plant, can only serve as a condition if they change themselves. So only if there's change taking place can they assist the growth of the sprout. So for example, with regard to the water, initially the seed is very hard, but then because of adding water, then it becomes softer and growth can take place. So this means that without change, it's impossible for something to serve as a cause or a condition of something else. And so in conclusion, Geshe-la says, this means that if something arises, if something is generated in dependence on causes and conditions, it definitely has to change. And thus, something that exists just by merely by reason of the fact that it is existent, that it exists, a conditioned phenomenon, therefore it has to change, it has to be impermanent. So taking, for example, someone who starts to meditate for 3 or 4 days, they're meditating every day for 1 hour. In that case, meditation will not go well, because the mind goes here, the mind goes there, the mind just goes everywhere. So the mind changes all the time. At times the mind goes here, times the mind goes there. At other times there is attachment and desire. Then there's anger. Then one thinks about the past and one plans the future. So this means that the mind is not just one kind of solid thing, no, but it consists of different moments and different aspects which arise one after the other. So becoming aware of that impermanence is only possible if your meditation is not going well. Then you become aware of this impermanent fact. If your meditation is not going well, you become aware of the impermanence of your own mind. Now with regard to this change taking place is in the nature of these phenomena. So knowing this, and His Holiness usually, that's what His Holiness explains, is, well, if we know that things change, we should also know there's nothing we can do about this. So we cannot do anything about the change itself. That is in the nature of phenomena. This we cannot do anything about. However, what we can do is make sure that the change goes in a positive direction. That's what we can do from our own side.
동해 탑 아니 탑 딜라테네 그러다 위치고 신 나베기다 슝네 데밀체다데 시나 지고 대정은 미신데 소다.
So this being the situation, this being the way phenomena exist, that serves as the basis. Basis in the sense that if we examine phenomena, we come to see the reality of change, the fact that phenomena are changing. So that is the basis in the context of the three: basis, path, and result. So when talking about basis, path, and result, well, first of all, we understand the reality of change. And then from the point of view of the path, we then consider how can we change something? How can we influence the kind of change? And then with respect to the result, well, what is the result? What kind of result do we reap by way of influencing work, by way of knowing how to bring forth change? So therefore, from a Buddhist point of view, you find in the scriptures, you find the explanation of basis, path, and result. And so here it's first understanding the basis, that phenomena change, and then the method of changing them in a certain way, and the dependence on that method, reaping a certain result. So this is how His Holiness usually explains it. So therefore, if the situation is such that phenomena change, a question that may arise is change and transformation good or bad? Is it good, is it positive, or is it negative? So what should we say? It's good, or should we say it's bad? What would you say? It's good or it's bad? But so His Holiness says in response to this kind of question, without thinking of interdependence, then when we think of something being positive, it seems 100% positive, only positive. And when there's something regard to be negative, or bad, it seems to be 100% negative, without considering interdependence. However, when considering interdependence, when thinking of that, the situation is different. So this morning, His Holiness mentioned this during his teaching. So from one side, from one perspective, the fact that phenomena do change is a positive thing, because we can change something negative. Something that is negative it's possible for it to change, and we can bring forth that change. Change something from being negative into something else. But it would be better if the good things would not change, if they would not transform into. So therefore, saying whether change is good or bad, you cannot say that in and of its kind of self, like in the sense that definitely good or bad, is impossible. We can only speak of it in a relative sense. So this is the nature of phenomena, the nature of conditioned phenomena. So from the point of view of practice, one should now use this to one's own advantage, in the sense that one leaves aside negative kind of thoughts and instead adopts positive kind of thoughts and attitudes.
Tinti Yuna, Yaga de Guru to Juris, to go to take my Samdana, Maji the Hiruare, Yaga de Chumika, you want in the case in 2 men, the go to Harris, some of the Madame to go.
Now, with regard to positive situations, if we feel arrogant about the situation, proud and arrogant, then of course there's the danger that our mind gets confused or our minds gets unpacified and we lose our peace of mind. It may also lead to attachment and desire. So in that case, if any positive situation leads to arrogance or desire, we should change it. But if it doesn't lead to those negative states of mind, we can just leave it. We can just ignore the positive things. We don't need to do anything about them. And then when negative things happen to us, when things like inopportune things happen to us, well, we can take to mind the fact that it doesn't last. So to tell ourselves or to reflect upon the fact that it's only temporary. The negative situation is merely temporary. And that relaxes our mind. It enables us to approach the situation with a relaxed mind. Likewise, when we study, and we don't really feel there's any positive result, there's no real result coming from our study, again, to consider the fact that it's constantly changing, that the absence of a result is merely temporary. And in that way, becoming aware of the change enables us to keep up our determination and not to lose our determination, not to feel discouraged.
Midaba Hinzan to go at SKG here, Kishidan Midao share the Yisun. And did not test Midawa KG, that the chicken on the Tata Koto Wikimari. That Karisigorsona, the road to you, Midaba City, the Dean, that did the Ichi over to Charlotte, Ichi Kita, Jim Mirua, the Jim over to Charlotte, good in table meeting in Charlotte. That didn't let this in the Kitchen, Jason Tata, the Jumedi Sunjin or any Tamitavare, any Tamevare, the Zushie, the Zugitone, Sinjin Pendo Jevaina, and any something Pentaya, the Zuli Pendo Shagda Chigris, and the Gimzenko on the Gimzenka Resina, any Chido move there, any Shirin that there. Tizuki Midavi Deva Torsigores. Midavi Deva di Tomameva Sunoche Gares. Da Domani da Tiji Tabi Deva Torgores, Torchigores, Tabi Deva di Martoma in Nigeris, Kimzen the Digisungur. That Tabi Deva and some dance at Goden sometimes. Jason Goden, Tarbasi, Shab, Tabi Moji Sharp Edge. The Digi Tonia. Kohashi down the things of the treasure or the Taya, Chimachi Kajishi was not test how we get.
So, with regard to this change, impermanence, or this constant change, as explained yesterday, this line that Geshe-la explained yesterday, that from impermanence one understands. From the understanding of impermanence, one gains the understanding of the suffering nature. So His Holiness also explained this today. But there's another way of explaining this aspect of this concept of from impermanence, one understands suffering. And this may be a little bit difficult to understand, that idea. But what Geshe-la is saying here is that the fact that phenomena are impermanent may lead to having little faith in them. Because they're unstable, they're unreliable, they're always changing. So in other words, it's difficult to rely on something or have faith in something or believe in something if it's constantly changing. And so the Buddha, what he taught was impermanence. The Buddha taught selflessness. And it is said that these teachings on impermanence and selflessness are much more beneficial than giving, for example, material objects. Because these external objects, these material objects, or objects such as education, etc., so those qualities, those phenomena are impermanent. And they only lead to a kind of impermanent happiness, which we have experienced again and again since beginningless time. So the kind of happiness in reliance on or in dependence on material possessions and so forth, we experienced over and over again. And so therefore what we need now is a kind of permanent happiness, a lasting happiness, a happiness that we have never experienced before. And that refers to liberation, that refers to the truth of cessation, so nirvana, or the truth of cessation. So in that sense, that's another way of thinking about it, that the impermanence leading to suffering, here we need something stable, we need a permanent kind of cessation. But of course this is slightly difficult to understand, this idea is slightly hard to understand.
아니 미다바지 뒤다 이시 제미 위비케제 디셰바이나 남대여로 남기대바 이게 아니 이시 제미 위로 차도로 와서 미다바로 와서디 다 지문지신게 공부하다가 렌투비 위에 강시들 타도를 때나 많이 뒤에 이대로 와서 내가 이시 제세지를 봐도 타도나 아니 뒤에 돌아야지 다 뒤에들라 아니 단도 도시쳐가는 게 가서 최남이 양을에 대비 인수나 최남이 이제 파워잖아. 최만 이거는 따지게 세계지기지요. 다도 원도 제. 다 간제디 남지야 디제요라 가서 싱가 파워잖아. 세계지. 디저우지 소다. 그 내가 따디를 이제 딜을 그 바로 레서는 주승이 유엘에서 있어요. 디제지 소고. 되게 테스트하고도 제가 지금 당어서 하고
So why is that? So the reason for this is explained, for example, Lama Tsongkhapa in one of his writings, he gives a similar kind of explanation with regard to what Gela just explained. The fact that, well, if someone says, well, since phenomena are impermanent, we cannot really believe in them, they're kind of unreliable. And then someone may argue, well, that is also true for the truth of the path. With regard to the truth of the path, consciousnesses, well, we cannot believe in them either because they're impermanent, they are unstable. So it's actually not possible to really, it's not appropriate really to believe in them. But the answer to this would be, well, in the end, we have to leave them behind. When we reach nirvana, so this is also said in one of the sutras, in the Vajragata Sutra. So when one reaches the sphere of nirvana, then so also the non-phenomena have to be left behind. So phenomena have to be left behind. So not just the non-phenomena, but also phenomena have to be left behind. And then there's also the explanation. So says like here the word dharma, probably phenomena here probably means like dharma as in like spiritual dharma. So not only does one have to leave behind the dharma or the non-dharma, one also has to leave behind dharma itself. So anyway, Geshe-la then continued his explanation by saying this is probably similar to taking refuge, for example. At some time when one has reached one's goal, one has to leave behind refuge, the object of refuge. Like a boat, when you reach the shore, you use the boat to reach the other shore, the other side, but when you reach the other side, you need to leave it behind. So similarly here, the idea of the truth of the path, though it is unstable, but when you reach your goal, you need to leave it behind. You don't carry it with you. So with regard to change, phenomena changing or transforming, well, when we talk about yesterday's I and today's I, they're different. So yesterday's I is not today's I. and today's I is not yesterday's I. So therefore, if we perceive yesterday's me or yesterday's self to be today's self, in the sense of perceiving them as identical, that would mean that the I hasn't changed. But so therefore, since there's a difference between an earlier and a later moment, since they're not identical, since they're not one, this indicates that the phenomenon has changed, the I has changed.
다 가상이 맞았더니 맞지 뭐이나 다 이렇게 지고고 와이나 지고고서 비리 와디 가서 내적이 야시다다 딜도 다 지고고서 비리 내자요 시다지 내자.
If that is true, if yesterday's I is not the same as today's I, well, if you then ask Geshe-la a question, the person you ask a question and the person who answers are not the same. So you're asking one person a question, but the one who answers is a different person.
디 컨디션 용거레스. 디 애니 신이 디 계제디 시험디 애니 또베타비 남샤지 코 마셰르 시차르다 디가도.
So how is that possible, or how is that the case then? In order to really understand this or explain this, we need to explain. It is indispensable in this case to explain the concept of phenomena being imputed by conceptual consciousness.
다 또다게 남자 시험디 양이 되고 스타야.
So with regard to imputation by conceptual thought, well, I've seen another movie in order to explain it.
가서 디리 단단히 가서 디땡이 우주등이여라 우주등이 어떤 디 된서도 따윈데 다른 건 따윈데 감지 강로 감제 감디기다 강로 보문지다 두스 예데다 아니 예데도 전에다 어지럼서다 미지도 좀 챙기러다 보문지도 미지도 좀 챙기러 가서지래는 속내 친구지 키워오지 다제야 두문이다 수치가 파키친 수치가 파키친 당어서 항상 요르다 이 항상 외에 주디 가진 차원에서는 당문이네 무슨 미지도 섬을 되기로다.
So in this movie, or in this kind of what he saw in this movie, he saw a magician performing on a stage, and this magician had like a long box on the stage, and a girl was lying in that box. So you could see the head of the girl, and you could see the feet of the girl. And then the magician took a saw and cut the box into two parts, so that there's the upper part and the lower part are now separated. So why are we amazed at that when we see that? Because we have previously designated there to be one person lying there.
다디 추예기 시디가 됐으나 뭐면데 제가 보문이었다. 직디 아니 고디마 감나는지 수분매기 도스테데. 직디 수분매기 감나는지 수분되기체 디니 바라를 추주에데 둘러디 도스마 도스 요샤디 난 미치도 제조로. 다디 제자데 엔두분이 다데 먼저다 때문에 차에 대차데.
So where's the mistake? How come we are mistaken? Well, we are mistaken because in reality what was there were two girls. So one girl, you could only see the upper part of the body, the head and the shoulders. And the second girl, you could only see the lower part of the body. And because there was some cloth in between, which covered the fact that those were two different beings, well, we are therefore amazed when it's cut apart and there's still a living being.
미니 디르와 수베메디 로하제 뜨디 로하제 이네 뭐 주이 디르 캡데 니기 다 미지 통데디 다 도베기 추이 통데 자디 거와.
So in reality there are two people there. Well, one person whose upper part is visible and another person whose lower part is visible. But to us, there's one person. It's like this is one person which pervades the entire object. It seems to be one person. So our conceptual mind has designated one person that pervades this particular being.
다디는 신지기다 대조지나 조지다 company 나셔와 얘기 company 얘기 company 디 강라 방내직이 찹대도 방내직 통고도 방내직 company게 강 샤샤스 찹대샤스 다가나다 디 도베다 눈치 차다 되기다 지금은 신지 company 다가만이 남는 뒤도 시담는 뒤로와 다 가지 뒤를 찾는 방례치 니가 가도 찾는 게 가와이는 다 스미티도 다다 나도는 아주 별레이는 또 동마스니 신지 단계로 와 가라 다디 가와니 되고는 동마치 계셔서 그래서 동마치 세 삼로 다가라 다기게 동마치 나에다 찍바 그 추인 디지시도 찾는 거
Now with regard to the table, for example, so when you look at this table, there are 4 legs and 1 surface. So on the basis of those 4 legs, on top of which you find a surface, then you impute a table, like a pervasive kind of object. This is mentally imputed, and this is where a mistake comes in. So this with regard to this mental imputation. And then with regard to pillars, for example, having objects such as pillars. Now here in India, they're made from cement. But in Tibet, you would have another beam that would go across the room, and then the pillar would support that. And so on the basis of that, you would then impute pillar. Although there's like different objects, but there would be one object that is imputed.
동마 예초도 동마 유연초도 카바를 지금 말해. 그래서 딱 카바 인도에서는 예초도 파조 가와가는 요 말해. 유연기 초도 파조 가와가는 요 말해. 딘디기 니디 마이비야 동마 신다제 미도. 일레 제가 저는 동마 캡딩이니. 이니가를 캡딩이 동마디 라야 미도. 대기 미디나시 미지도 쟁글 제가 저는 수고메디 크게래. 수고때디 크게래. 이가를 캡딩이지 추인이 통마도 제가 저는 라야 미도.
Now with regard to this beam, the beam that cuts across the room, it is actually made of different parts. So you think of the right part and then the left part. So there's one to the right and one to the left. So those two are different. The one to the right is not the one to the left, and the one to the left is not the one to the right. But when our mind designates, when our mind imputes, there seems to be one beam that pervades all of those parts, of those aspects of the beam, of this phenomenon. So this is similar to the imputation that takes place in this show by the magician, where you have actually 2 different people here, but you pervade. You have like an upper part that you can see and a lower part, but you designate this to be one. So the process of designation here is the same.
디제자 다 디나 신지기다 가장 가장이가 드링가 디니가 캡딩이 나지 서로코니 디기 토네 에는 말을 좀 왔다 내내자 아니 그에 말을 두자체 이 반대 보도 세디 남샤리 디기 토네 온디고 디 제가 저는 믿어 가장디 가자 드링디 가장의 유행이 드링을 차요 말에 드링 유행이 가장을 차요 말에 가장 유행 드링이 가야만 이미야 여러 가지의 주주들로 말에
So likewise with regard to yesterday's I and today's I, it seems we designate a pervasive kind of I. On the basis of yesterday's I and today's I, we impute one kind of I. But in actuality, yesterday's I is not today's I, and today's I is not yesterday's I. So when we analyze this kind of imputation, so this kind of I, for example, who answers questions, is being asked something and gives response, or the person who gets harmed or retaliates. So these are different people, basically. So the person who's being asked a question is different from the person answering. The person who's being harmed is different from the person who retaliates, and so forth. And if we analyze, we come to see that yesterday's I is not the I today, and today's I is not yesterday's I. And there is no I other than those. So there's no other I other than the one yesterday, there's no I other than the one today. So therefore it's merely designated. The I is merely designated on those moments, on those different moments in time. So in this way, thinking about impermanence takes us in the direction of understanding emptiness. So this is probably what some of the masters say when they explain that an understanding of emptiness takes one closer, an understanding of impermanence takes a person closer to an understanding of emptiness.
다기 때문에 다댕이 당원이네 부모님 여봐 현사나 다디 도스 저 미직도 통구도 세지만 미니를 현사나 제가 제비에 넣다게요 말아 넣다면은 데모세요 말아 지체는 다 돈이 또 사나 가서 넣다요 말이 때문에 정말 아이
So, with regard to this show by the magician, well, for a person who knows right from the beginning that there are two girls, who knows that in actuality these are two girls lying there, and that it just appears as if there were one person. Well, this person will not be amazed, will not be excited upon cutting through this box. And so maybe someone who's realized emptiness, there's no longer any amazement or any excitement.
So
with respect to the ordinary splendors, the marvels of samsara, in order to be amazed by those, maybe it's better not to realize emptiness. However, in the teachings of the Buddha, for example, in the sutras and the teachings by the Buddha, it actually says that those who have realized emptiness and have attained the peace and happiness of nirvana, the happiness that they experience, our ordinary happiness, not even a part of it can compare to the happiness of nirvana. Not even a tiny speckle of that can compare to the happiness one experiences once one has attained nirvana. So this is what those who have experienced it, this is what the Buddha experienced. So taking the worldly kind of happiness and the happiness of liberation, taking all this happiness, those types of happiness on one hand, and then comparing it to the happiness of a bodhisattva who is asked to practice generosity. The happiness of the bodhisattva is said to be even greater in comparison to the happiness, the greatest worldly happiness or the happiness of nirvana. So therefore, with regard to the teachings His Holiness gave at the beginning of this text, the text started with the explanation of the presentation of coarse impermanence, and then it continued on to explain or to present subtle impermanence. Now, with regard to coarse impermanence, when we talk about coarse impermanence, that refers to death and impermanence. And so the question is death something good? Now, again, with regard to whether death is something positive or negative, that again correlates to interdependence or dependent arising. If, for example, someone remains for a really long time, has a really long life, and harms a lot of people, or experiences a lot of sickness, so experiences a lot of problems and difficulties, and just doesn't die, well, that's a problem. In that case, if that person stays for very long, has a lot of problems, etc., then death not occurring is something negative. Whereas on the other hand, if a person doesn't live to a long life, however, they help a lot of people, this person benefits a lot of people, on top of that they have a very positive, a very good quality of life, well then we would say it's better that they don't die. So therefore we cannot say whether death is good in and of itself, Rather, it's relative. It's in relation to something else. It's relative that we can say death is positive or not. So it's something relative.
Dina shinchigi tati pagi niba ka leondi ngazu ludi ko sonre. Ta ludi ta yabode tujare siya die ten ki shebo ludi mo le tena ta misame la shin dese tu ta je ji ba chi shebo tuja shi. Ya ludi niba de le tena de tena ke ta chimu shi tu tu ye ji. Di shin on de sane ya ludi de le tena ke ji shin ludi shin mu na shi za shi mu ji. Ya tena ki shebo.
Likewise, with regard to the second chapter, when His Holiness discussed the second chapter, presenting the body here. So the body, in the sense, is the body something, our physical body, is that something positive or something negative? Now, from the point of view or in relation to the fact that the body is impure and vulnerable, etc. So as His Holiness gave extensive explanation this morning, so from that perspective, we can say that the body is something negative, something undesirable or negative. Whereas on the other hand, with regard to the potential, the capacity that this body holds from the point of view of making our life meaningful, well then again we can say it's something positive. In other words, this human existence is something very precious.
강에 채버이나 동해 용바이나 야버에 두자리에서는 딜레니 뜻의 대적이야 야게 차시고 다디 준준하고 순거.
Also with regard to problems, when we experience problems and difficulties, are those positive or are those negative? Are they something good or bad? And again, it is in relation, it is relative again. From a specific perspective seen, we can then say it's positive or negative, as explained, for example, in Aryadava's Bodhisattva way of life. So, taking Geshe-la as an example, so Geshe-la said that he himself is having a lot of physical problems. He's actually quite sick, experiencing a lot of physical sickness. So he's saying that every day he can only work for about 3 or 4 hours, do some kind of work. And from the point of view of his education, so of course he has the Dharmic education, but no kind of modern education. So whether his existence is positive or negative, again, is relative. It depends on the perspective. So if Gela were to take it from the perspective that he has a lot of physical problems, physical illness, he cannot really study the scriptures, read the scriptures, he cannot really benefit others. So if he reflects on his life in this fashion, well, it definitely would help to decrease or to pacify his arrogance. But on the other hand, there's the danger that he becomes disheartened, he becomes unhappy and depressed. So, but seeing it from another perspective, if he thinks about those people who kill 100, he can do that. He doesn't have the physical strength to do it. So he lacks the physical strength to actually go out and beat up and kill other people. So from that side again, from that perspective, it's something positive. In particular, Geshe-la is saying that His Holiness always pays special attention to those who are sick and who are old. So that's an advantage if one is sick. If you have any questions? mentioned the four empty states with regard to subtle levels of consciousness. Now, with respect to our body, when we talk about our physical body is related to, or connects to the four elements. So the element of earth, the element of water, the element of fire, and the element of wind or energy. So when we are born, our consciousness basically connects to those elements. When we're born, or when we're conceived, at the time of our conception, Aryadeva is saying kind of connects to, if you like, or relates to those four elements. It connects with the physical body in the sense it connects with the four elements. But then at the time of our death, this kind of process is reversed in the sense that while we're alive, the four elements serve as the physical basis, our physical basis, but then at the time of death, their capacity to serve as a basis, that degenerates. And so therefore, the four elements basically separate from the body. This relationship, this connection between the body and the four elements is severed. Which is why we talk about the earth element, its capacity to disintegrate. It kind of dissolves, so it dissolves. And then it dissolves into the water element, and afterwards then the water element dissolves, and etc. So in this kind of gradual procedure. And every time one of the elements, its capacity disintegrates or dissolves, there is appearances to the mind. For the person who's dying, they experience certain appearances. Of course, it would take up too much time to give you an extensive explanation on that kind of gradual dissolution of the aggregate of the elements in the body at the time of death. But to just give you an example, as one of the first initial stages, what happens is that the earth element dissolves into what's called the water element. So at that time, what happens is that one loses, for example, the fragrance, like the skin doesn't look any fragrant, it no longer looks fragrant. Moreover, one has an appearance like a mirage. So to the mind, there's an appearance of a mirage. There's also a sense that the body is kind of sucked to the ground, as if it was sucked into the earth. And one notices that those who are dying and who are going through this first stage may hold on to something, like hold on to some iron or something around them in order to not to be absorbed into the ground. So this is one example of what happens at those levels of dissolution. And this you can find in the scriptures, these kind of explanations you'll find extensively set forth in the scriptures.
this Barboda, Dugin Yadabata, Allah, Sugi to get a shimmer. Sugi to the Madame at the shame. Gunda Maro, Sugi to his the Digital Kaje. This called Martan's Leto, or the Dito Chirua, a teacher. A teacher, I need not home to water. They go to the Hanam, the Mikuma, the Temple, and teacher, and she named that same treasure and lady. That the Jimajin, that teacher to a humor, that Bejar, that Cassim, Dungagi, Naka, Torrent, that. 你们以为的大大出来之前，那我那样的嘛，但是嘛的些，但第一个给，但那个给，到顶级给那我就晓得的是，但顶级就嘛，送到的顶级送。
Now, with regard to the four empty states, well, after the dissolution of the four elements has been completed, then thereafter one experiences four further stages. Which means that in the first stage, it's described as the dissolution of the white appearance, which means that for the person who's reached that state, the person who's dying, they have the appearance of a moonlight in a clear autumn sky. And thereafter, the white appearance dissolves into a red-orange kind of increase, so red-orange increase, which then means that there's the appearance like sunlight in a clear autumn sky at dusk. And then that's the second empty. The third empty is that the red increase dissolves, and then there's what's called the black near attainment, where most ordinary people lose consciousness. They're no longer conscious. So in this case, there's still an appearance to the mind, which is an appearance of like thick blackness in a clear autumn night sky. And then thereafter, the fourth empty is when that black near attainment, that it dissolves, and there's the clear light mind. The clear light mind arises. So at that time, the appearance is like a natural color of a clear autumn sky at dawn, which is like after the black near attainment, which is like the darkness of the night. Then there's like the appearance of the clear light, which is similar to the light at dawn. When the night is broken and the day starts.
That dinner she did Shigala, that did Mountain Dray Shadow. Dinner she knew could do the Shigala, the Shingi Tomoji, and the Chasashi, which she was the Jutin taking me and the Chetumar, the Shazos, Chetumar.
So this happens, these stages, as Geshe-la just explained them, so they take place at the time of death. But then it is explained that there are similar stages every time we fall asleep. But whether they're just as subtle in the same way as these stages are at the time of death, is difficult to tell, because usually we're not conscious while it appears, and so therefore we cannot really compare it to the stages at the time of death.
Can I ask a question? Just follow this one. Sure. Yeah, but it's called for empty, right? So is there anything connected to the emptiness?
The lady's question was, they're called the four empties. So does this have anything to do with emptiness? So the four empties, does this correlate to the term emptiness? And Geshe-la's answer was, this has nothing to do with emptiness. It is basically just saying the former appearance is like the former appearance stops or ceases, and in that sense it's empty, and then the next appearance arises, and then that again ceases, so there's another stage of empty. It does not connect in any way to lack of objective existence in the sense of selflessness or emptiness.
그게 돈이 무슨 또 거기 나와 저부지 요레스 진 디송 디 경우는 무지 선전 농장교 다 디지 디자네 아니 거시기 디 그게 truly 아니 디 이제 아니 신도 차이 다 시험한테 돈이 난 그레스 나땡이 요데 그래서 어서 야고 용이나네 요데 그래서 이제 truly
So at the time of the subtlest awareness, when that arises, the subtlest clear light mind. So the Kidrum Nosan Gyatso, one great master, he has said that this appearance is similar or can be compared to the appearance of emptiness. So His Holiness sometimes quotes this passage, but the problem with this passage is that sometimes it can be misunderstood. There are even some great scholars who believe that this passage means like that it means that when one experiences the clear light mind of death, that one actually perceives emptiness, which is not the case. So the question here someone asked is with respect to verse number 74 in chapter 3. So you look at your text, chapter 3, verse number 74, line 3, it says, "Nor is there anything which is a definite cause of desire." So the question is, could Geshe-la please explain what is the meaning of these two lines, or of this line? Nor is there anything which is a definite cause of desire. So chapter 3, verse 74.
되게 그래서 경험이 슈들이 소소 그래서 진지 가지 고지 소소 이거 좀다 다 진지 다는 게 뒤지면도 슈를 계시 진짜를 좀 빼시해서 시소마서
So Gila is saying that at the time when His Holiness read through the text, he said there's no time to really give an explanation on the meaning of this verse, and Geshe-la was thinking, oh, I'm afraid people ask me about this. So therefore Geshe-la is saying he doesn't know exactly the meaning of this particular verse.
딘제기 아니 강도도 샤차께와 딘제기다 디통하나 아니 갈라우다 디통 디자네 디통도 다디다 메디비시 깨게서 나오다 딘제디 아니 장마레스 간지스라고레스 나이터지 컨트롤 따나다 미상자다 컨트롤 따나 장마레
So Geshe-la says he's not 100% sure about the meaning of this verse, but here he's saying that here with regard to the first two lines, if you look at the first two lines, it is appropriate to call clean that towards which freedom from desire arises, nor is there anything which is a definite cause of desire. With regard to the explanation of this, so for us, when there's desire, when there's an object of desire, a desire arises, that gives rise to another type of desire. But for a person who's reached the state of an Arya who has realized emptiness, at some point they reach the state when there's no longer any desire. And there's no longer any desire. And so then that which is for us desirable, which is considered to be clean from our point of view, something clean, for that person there's no longer the sense of cleanness, there's no longer any kind of desire, there's rather a sense of disgust when perceiving this particular phenomenon. Yeah, so for those, it's inappropriate for those to call that clean from the point of view, from the perspective of those who have reached freedom from desire. And so there's nothing left, there's no definite cause left for this person of desire.
자, 디제 뒤전에 예벌도 잘 줄줄비 위에 가나 요마인 수기 땅 예벌도 타지도 아니 코디 되자와 다 가서 있다 타지도 다 차외비 되외비 아니 뭐보디 아니 가야 요마레스 야다면은 다 되지 타지도 차베기 외비 가부지 외비 다 차발하나 가발하고 타지도 가부지 외비 아니 사제 뭐보디 가야 요마레스
So then with regard to line number 3 and 4, nor is there anything which is the definite cause of desire. This is basically saying there's nothing left which is suitable to bring forth any desire. So there's nothing left that is suitable to generate, or that is an appropriate kind of condition that can give rise to desire. There's nothing left of that sort. So this is what is meant for the person who's overcome desire. The object, there's no longer an object which could actually bring forth desire.
제가 이 수수기 삼도 당당다 취미지 남도다 저와래마도 타진도 이 야고에서 안티 가요가 가요 주레스 나투만 그래서는 먼저 가고 제서 야고도 쓰야 미션다지 뭐 이거 타지도 먼저 두자도 납세는 야 미션다지 들 가고 지고 제가 파랑이 토하는 타지도 대상이 규제지다 고로 규제 드리게 제디요 다다까다 대상 규로 제디기 이 예버도 대상이 규제를 뭐디 요마레스.
So usually when we talk about that which brings forth attachment or desire, as ordinary beings, what we identify as the cause, the kind of main cause that gives rise to the desire, is the external object. So if there's something that we consider to be nice or beautiful, then we like it, we generate attachment or desire. Whereas on the other hand, if we don't like it, the opposite takes place. There's a sense of dislike. But this is actually only because of our misperception, and thereafter the inappropriate attitude. So the inappropriate attitude that gives rise to the sense that the object on its own is bad or good, or is negative or positive. So the object in and of itself does not possess any positive quality or negative quality, because something that is likable, something that is positive or beautiful for one person is dislikable, or is negative, unattractive for another person. Or likewise, whatever is unattractive for one person is beautiful and attractive for another person. So there's really nothing from the side of the object. So therefore, there's nothing definite. There's no definite kind of cause, in the sense that the object in itself doesn't hold that quality of in and of itself kind of giving rise to desire, being desirable. Is the impermanence of regarding the impermanence of a thing, if in the moment of arising, in the moment of a thing arising, is the thing's disintegration is there. So if the thing arises, it's also disintegrating. Is the disintegration, and the disintegration occurs in the future when the thing arises not when the thing arises, not just appear to arise, but does abide. When the thing abides, that says abide everywhere. Abides. When the thing abides, not just appears to abide, but does abide. Yes?
Tadati nabe tutama shi nanglo ne chitama waki ane di korimshi do nyer ke dine ane ka se ane korim ta ina ane duje tamje ta kiga ne sunda deba ke je shi ondu tsane kiye gi tse ane jibi tse kabi tse nebi tse tse sungu di tamani ni yobe so rubichi tangi tapata na tumende da tse di tamani yobe che tse di jawa che di ane korim che ngira ane kebi jawa che nebi jawa che ringi che bi so rubichi sungu.
Now, from the point of view of Buddhist philosophical systems such as the Vaibhashika says that if you take any conditioned phenomenon, the activity of arising, the activity of remaining, or using the word abiding or remaining, and the activity of disintegrating, those arise sequentially. They do not take place at the same time. Whereas the kind of substantial quality of being generated, disintegrating, and remaining, they arise at the same time. So they just say the activity, that is sequential. So first something is generated, it arises, then it remains, and then it disintegrates. This is the view of the lowest philosophical system called the Vaibhashika. So the higher systems, the higher philosophical systems above the Vaibhashika, they give a slightly different explanation.
뒤에 아니 주제 중이 따다 이제 아니 주제 코디 다 오늘 전에 또 주제 미다 된데도 요만 사스스스 같이 다 주제 미도다 진짜 중이비 진짜 담배라고 그러나 진짜 담배기다 주제 중이 유에 아마 세긴 찍다 되듯이 나오진 거다 세긴 찍 루스 다 뒤에 거쳐 버렸어 다 뒤지고 다 로직이다 로직이 뒤지시오 디 지리자네 디 세겐치 다 딜레 차르 주로 왔다 전화다 아링에 세겐치 기지 쉐바이나 가세치 기지 쉐바이나 가세 니버데 온디자네 다 로직 라나다 다와주니 에샤마순제 주주 다 디나지 추제다 가세 잡아 땡케비오다 가마이나 다 가세이나 다 봉가시 리뷰나 가제 디땡 봉직 뭐 차샤다 아링가나 지디시를 잡신만다 추제지 나샤나 봉지 뭐 차샤바이나 그렇게 기진이버디 그렇게 기진이버디 레바다냠도 그렇게 문지기 맹이 차살다 그러 다른게 잡아다와 있나 근데 더 니벌 레바다냠도 더 중이 참되게 로디 매우 차살 그러 가차다 거의 그래서 더 주지 못해요만 더 중이면은 로마로 다 딜라디 전에 디리베야 대도디 전에 다때 기진이벌 레바다 차살다 기지 당고도 좀 그러 이벌레 처리 요마를 로차상이 요만다. 딜레디다 기지 담부까나 이베까나 다 가차로 로디. 아니 가차바이나 기지 담부들 강심이 용거로. 가차바디 용하다 강심 모두 줘. 딜레디 그런 주점이 강심거리요.
Should I give an example with regard to 2016? So when this year, the new year of 2016 started, so around 12 a.m. they make a lot of noise. That's probably the new year starting. So you can hear all this noise, all this banging. So in that moment, they say the new year starts. It's the first moment of the year 2016. Of course, it's a little difficult to determine because everyone's watch may be a little different. So to actually determine when is the exact moment of the year 2012 may be a little difficult. But anyhow, so from the moment it is 12 a.m. and then the clock starts moving. So then first second passes, the second passes, and so forth. So from moment to moment, 1 year consists of 12 months. And then those months consist again of a certain amount of seconds. So let's take the first month of January. It's made up of certain seconds, right? Seconds in time. Krishna says he cannot calculate the exact amount of seconds, but like 100,000s or whatever. So actually, when the first second of 1 month is over, let's say 1 month has 100,000 seconds. If the first second has passed, then you no longer have 100,000 seconds left. Okay, so you don't have a full month any longer. Now, to take this to a different level, if at 12 o'clock, at 12 a.m., 1 second later, you don't have a full year any longer because you're short 1 second. So therefore, you could argue a year does not last for 12 months because it actually just lasts for 1 second, because a moment later you no longer have a full year left. So in that sense here, we do talk about a year as having 12 months, but actually in the first moment, the first year has disintegrated. After the first moment, a year is no longer there because it's not a full year with the full amount of seconds. So this means that during the first second of the new year, at that time, the new year is disintegrating. In that moment, the new year is disintegrating. So this means that something, by reason of the fact that it exists, merely by reason of the fact that it exists, it disintegrates. That is the meaning of this particular concept.
그래서 딱그 깨바다 가신거니 뒤용 차도가 다 가신거지 감마차리 바라들라 내봤습니다. 딱 믿고 샤워. 어떤 제수주로 요노도 스케줄이
So therefore, this 1 second, during this 1 second, the new year has arisen and it is disintegrating. But at the same time, in that second, it is also remaining. There is a remainance here, but that is just imputed by conceptual consciousness. Also, in the moment of arising, the thing disintegrates. Then the thing does not exist. Yes?
그래서 단디 계절이 가르치는 깨가 내세의 제외버지 샤바이나 라문은 주버지 샤바이나 야나면 대주 있게 주시나 지용의 샤바이나 제외버지 뢰다비 남샤 균이 매버지 제장장 기토는 지시자가 침버이나 뒤땅다 용거다 내가 샤도가 되균 내가 균이 샤마토가 인자 제서 내가 샤마토나 내가 가바 샤도 말에 깨바 샤도 말에 제서 딱 깨가 내숨 계절이 샤사라 거다 제기토니 제장이나 돈 기지 시에보이나 제선 따비고니 따남샤지 고니 예버도 시에고 다데 또베 따비토니 남샤지 유에고고다 마샤 타메다.
So this question arises, or would arise, if phenomena were not merely imputed, if they really existed for objectively, if they existed substantially, then this question would arise. But in actuality, they're merely imputed. They're designated by the mind. But they're merely imputed. by conceptual consciousness. So, in other words, it's just imputed, we just designate on a phenomena having arisen, abiding, and then disintegrating. So only if phenomena existed objectively, if there was some kind of substance there, then this question would arise. But it doesn't arise if phenomena are really imputed. So his holiness usually explains that when we talk about past and future, actually this is just something we take it to mind. So from a mental point of view, we think of the past, but actually the past is long gone, it is no longer there. So it's really just mentally bringing it to mind. With regard to the future, well, it hasn't arisen yet. Again, it's not something substantial there. We're just imputing it, we're just designating it. And if the past is not actually real, and if the future is not real, well, since the present exists independent on the past and the future, then we cannot actually say that there's an actual substantial presence. Which is why, according to the Prasangika system, the 3 times are merely imputed. It's only possible to talk about the 3 times by way of explaining that they're merely designated or merely imputed. From the point of view of the lower philosophical systems, other than the Prasangika school, they would say if phenomena are merely designated, they couldn't be there at all. Whereas the Prasangika school says that, what they say is that phenomena can only exist if they were designated. If they were not designated, nothing would be possible.
How is it better? How do we better organize the first retreat in short types of memory, like the experience song of experience, or the essence of song of experience by Master Tsongkhapa, and also the third Taiwanese Lamrim Seshima. So how many days should be spent? Lamrim Lamrim Seshima some of them I mean, I guess something and you have it done.
So with regard to those 2 types of lamrim and how to do a retreat on those 2, so songs of experience and the refined goal. So here Geshe-la suggests that one should first engage in the practice of the 6 preparatory steps, and thereafter then do the practices, go through the lamrim by way of doing a type of meditation where you just quickly take to mind each object, just allow each object to quickly appear to the mind.
Tadi bagi that dushini shagom chebaina tigo shagom chenta tini sum didi dena tigre ta duji the tachi du dila eke mido ta suzu da juri mada wani da dushi.
So in the beginning, as a beginner, one starts off by engaging in this type of meditation where you just quickly take to mind each of the topics of the Lamrim. And you can do this for 2 or 3 sessions. Now, with regard to the exact length of time, that is up to you. So in general, let's say, for example, if you have time for 3 months, during the first month, you should focus on the topics that pertain to the person of smaller spiritual capacity. And then during the second month, you spend the entire second month with the topic that relate or that pertain to the person of middling spiritual capacity. And then during the third month, you focus on the topics that correlate, or you meditate on the topics that pertain to the person of great spiritual capacity. So in that way, spending that much time definitely holds a stronger potential, has more force, as opposed to remaining in retreat just for a short time. If you remain in a retreat, in a Lamrim retreat, just for a short period of time, of course you leave imprints, but it doesn't have the same kind of strength, the same kind of ability or force, as opposed to staying in retreat for longer. This is because if you only stay in retreat, if you remain in a Lamrim retreat, if you do a Lamrim retreat only for a short time, then the type of meditation that you will engage in is the type of meditation where the topics just briefly appear to the mind, but you cannot take them to a deeper level. Whereas if you have more time, you can analyze each topic in depth and in such a way that it actually affects you deep from within. Deep from within there be some change. So that is necessary. This is seen as essential, so therefore it's good to spend more time.
The question is, according to those philosophical schools who assert that grasping at self and grasping at true existence that there are disturbing emotions, how do these two, the graspings, cause disturbance in mind? Explain this, please, and then please briefly explain the 2 types of suffering, changeable suffering or suffering of change, and the pervasive conditions existing in suffering.
That is rangi ngwene yore skeje di sheyongdu ruwa rangi ngwene yore skeje di sheyongdu ani di docho tende re se di kindu tata chile ko skor neda ko tende chine tende chine de yo inza ta de nge de da ban de shin ko ngo bo khale le ine tende gi thone ta dang chi ta ba ina ku ya ro du do sim de ro shin ta di gu ya ro de chane di gi docho tende ge je me ngene chu ra ngo du chu ba ji ya du ka ri ine di ko tatang di ta ba ina da gi kuyang ru zhe di ga ta de da di le de ni ge ji xie ba ina ma xi cha ji ko le ni de.
So, for example, if you think of the fact that phenomena do not exist from their own side, by way of thinking along those lines, automatically the mind will be able to take to mind the fact that phenomena exist interdependently. And as explained earlier, that relaxes the mind, and the understanding that phenomena are interdependent, exist only in a relative fashion, or independent, relaxes the mind. Whereas if one thinks, on the other hand, that phenomena exist in and of themselves, they exist from their own side and objectively, then there's no more room for interdependence, and that makes the mind uptight. So in that way, this misperception of reality, of perception of true existence, makes the mind unhappy or not peaceful.
다 잡아두지 동네기 제시에나 아니 자외 그게 내단이 뭐 중심이다. 사실 뭐 같은 제 잡아두지 동네 순당지 요하래. 다 무슨 파산다 있잖아요. 도대 대지 몸에 넣어라. 기회 동네에 상당. 동네 강 용대 참아 아니 내단이 뭐 기회디 뭐 찍어야 세지. 어디가 자시 뿡제니 디상당다지 두스타.
Now, with respect to the second question, in particular, the pervasive conditioned suffering, well, there's an explanation, a general explanation that is given with regard to anything contaminated, any contaminated phenomenon which is contaminated by reason of the fact that it is the result of afflictions and karma, well, that is a pervasive conditioned suffering. But then you find in many of the sutras and many of the treatises, the commentaries, the Indian commentaries on the sutras, you also find the explanation that the suffering of birth, the suffering of being generated or of birth, that is that refers to, that is the kind of pervasive conditioned suffering, because everything is at some point generated, it comes into existence, is newly born at some point. And that is because of karma and afflictions. So phenomena arise or they are born in dependence on karma and afflictions.
디가르스나 아니 베나타 라발디 직주보이나 아니 나사타에디 나사디 용겐디 셰바레스 리디마레스 라디단 라바나기도 고나기도 라르마도 라바딜라 테네 셰바디 도용고레스 디디마이나 아니 로딜레 직주나 나고르바스 제사다 용겐디 셰바인디 어느 셰바디기 라바딜라 주디 네 셰바디 용고야디 가르체바레스 셰다르 주나 네 셰베 도용 용고민도아스 디 가르레스나 셰바다다 라바디 저와차데레스 디 저와디 당고 차야디 다 계제시디 끼와세디 제사다 동네 용고야디 가르차레스나 류딘디지들 저와차바디 그레스 저와차베 고 당고디 끼와디 계제시고 디디케디 다 라와메 미토네 데데 용고 계샤요 디디지 제사 끼와레디 바로 동네 자와레스.
The reason for saying that suffering is being generated or being caused or being born, the reason for this is, again, like the example, if someone pierces your hand with a sharp object, then we say we experience pain. But that which experiences the pain is the consciousness itself. It's not actually the hand, the object itself, because otherwise, even in the case of a corpse, if you pierce the hand of a corpse, there would be pain. So therefore, that which experiences the pain is the consciousness. But then the question that arises is, why does the consciousness, why does the mind experience pain upon piercing one's hand, upon injuring the hand? This doesn't take place, for example, if someone injures another person's hand. So this means that it is by reason of the fact that one's own consciousness and one's own consciousness and one's body have a connection that pain is experienced. And where does the connection, what is the beginning of that connection? That is conception, that is birth, or in other words, the first moment of the arisal, the first moment of the body being produced. So the first moment of the body being produced, that is the moment when the relationship between the body and the mind was generated. And so therefore we say that that moment of first arisal, that is suffering. That is it's called the pervasive conditioned suffering. Because this kind of arisal, this making this connection in that moment is responsible for later pain. And moreover, there's no freedom in the sense that there was no kind of conscious decision to connect those two, the consciousness and the body, but rather it's through the force of karma and afflictions that the body, the form aggregate, and the mind connected at the moment of conception.
풍부디 정하는 그래서
The
그래서
body,
다 디네 퇴한테 자라 양 풍부신다지 내셔 양 정하신다지 주조로 그래서 디네 퇴 디네가 말해 내가디 신다지를 양교로 주의치 근데가 되었어.
so our body is like a prison. It's like a prison. So if we can leave this body, so we leave one prison, but we enter a new prison. So we keep changing prisons, basically. So the problem is not so much that we leave this prison, the problem is that we continue on to take birth in new prisons.
정원을 시기 뜻이 양망치 아니 용디 두자인 거지 못되나 용세디 꽤 유버디 못되나 그래서 지시도 용기 시험도 유버디 지시도 아니 기본요 말이스 일단 용기 시험도 유버디 저도 지도게 양 참참라 양 딜레 테스트지 용 탐지기 자와 말이거지 말이버싱이 추비 조지래 그래서 지시도 추비 있는 거 말이버지 시험도 유버디 지시도 이 기본요 말이스 못해도 쓰는
Also, His Holiness sometimes gives the following explanation that as long as we have afflictions, for as long we will have unhappiness. So as long as we're under the control or under the control of afflictive states of emotions, then we will experience unhappiness. So being under the control of the afflictions, that is also sometimes described, therefore, as being pervasive conditioned suffering. And then another explanation with regard to this type of suffering is that the reason we have afflictions is because we have ignorance. We have the misperception of reality, which is a mistaken perception of reality, of phenomena. Which is why there's a third explanation of this mistaken perception being the third type of suffering, pervasive conditioned suffering.
단 그의 동네에 있다 사제기 좋아되고 유단 제발 지거를
With regard to the other type of suffering, suffering of change, well, that refers to the ordinary contaminated feeling of happiness, the contaminated feeling of happiness. That is described as suffering of change.
좋아되기 유단 규다 뒤쪽 때 자가요 그 조조도가 배나다 대내 기부도 대대가 되나요? 그 야동에 내주도 다 나는 기부도 있어요. 나는 되는 교조도 대대 자기를 뒤돌아.
So, with regard to the object of this contaminated feeling, so the contaminated feeling, that object is just being described as this contaminated, being described as that type of suffering. So, it's actually not that bad when we talk about the object, when we talk about the cause, because if we, for example, sit down and after some time we experience suffering, well, we can get up, change the situation and get up and release ourselves from the suffering. And then when, upon getting up, we stand for too long, we experience suffering, we can sit down again. So there's a solution to the problem, there's a solution to the suffering that arises.
레디 때다 때니 기비 대화하라 좋아 대화하라 동의를 시레스 간데스 못 지고 기대스 가보다.
However, how can we say that the feeling of happiness itself, the feeling of happiness, the contaminated happiness we experience at a certain moment of time, how can we say this is actually the nature of suffering, or that is a type of suffering?
그래서 대화 딜라 때니 교육 위협이다 세고요래. 대화 디게 딜라 때니 차고게 샘추 다 딘딘자보다 되는 뭐 요래다 배나 청통나 거두들 심부지요래. 에 디체야 녀다 몰라. 요래디 카드 대나신 대화디 기지직의 교조그래 디제지가 꽤 마무도디 이는 쿠나 기지직이다 야부도 와서 기부도 왔어 대화 진짜 딘지 일로디 마다나 차고 배디메고 차에 가버려도 그게 두디 이네 그 약간 세지 센스들이 어디 참 하게 신고 넣어야 돼 가보지서.
So, of course, we understand that this happiness does not last. So that fault, okay, we can understand that. And that independence on happiness, attachment, desire arises. Our mind gets disturbed. The peace of mind gets disturbed. And we know, for example, that when we drink alcohol, so drinking tastes delicious, but then a moment later or sometime later there are problems and difficulties. We know all that, but the happiness itself, what is the problem with the happiness itself? Even if it just lasts for one moment. Okay, so it doesn't last long, that is a problem. But just that one moment, why is that in the nature of suffering? There's nothing wrong with that moment of happiness. If we understand the other folds, it is very difficult to let go of attachment towards ordinary happiness if there's a sense that happiness in itself is nice. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just the fact that it changes into suffering and then it doesn't last. That's the problem. So this itself is something bad. This itself is faulty. That unhappiness, that happiness in and of itself, that is problematic. And Ishwa says, I don't know why that is, how to explain that this is problematic. When you take, for example, the highest philosophical system, the Madhyamika Prasangika, and take that like the kind of highest explanation, there is a way to explain this by saying that to us this appears to be happiness, but this is merely due to a mistaken appearance. If we apply reasoning, we find that the object in and of itself, that particular happiness, is not really a happiness from its own side. So by applying the Prasangika reasoning, we can come to see that in and of itself there is no actual happiness. That is one way to kind of reason to say that this is not actually in the nature of happiness. However, how about the lower philosophical systems? Because they wouldn't argue in that way. So Geshe-la is therefore saying he doesn't really know how to explain why this happiness, this ordinary happiness, is in and of itself faulty. Taking another example, if one practices the different types of concentration, such as, for example, the calm abiding, which is a union of calm abiding and special insight, or the concentration that is a union of a calm abiding and special insight, and one attains one of the four concentrations, the four types of concentrations, then the type of happiness one experiences as a result of having achieved this happiness is much greater than our ordinary happiness, which is, for example, to take an example for that, if one is very, very hungry and in front of oneself one has a piece of dry bread. Initially one feels this piece of dry bread is really delicious, it's something very desirable. But if then instead someone brings a delicious meal, then one looks at that dry bread and in comparison to the delicious meal, it is totally inferior. So similarly, when one attains one of those higher states of concentration, the type of happiness one experiences in those states, in comparison to our own happiness, well, that is much greater. This happiness much greater. Our own happiness as ordinary humans would be totally inferior. But Geshe-la says he cannot really explain that because with regard to those concentrations, he has heard that those exist, but he's not able to really compare them himself, the type of happiness one experiences in those states. So, just to kind of take off from there, to give you another kind of example, basically, we'll give you another explanation in connection to this. So, when we talk about this bread, when you have ordinary bread and you're very hungry, then when someone brings this, or you have a piece of dry bread, If someone then brings a delicious meal, then at that moment you do no longer desire this kind of dry bread. It doesn't look as it doesn't seem to be desirable any longer. But Gela says, well, for example, sometimes he meets people, like people who, from his perspective, they should be very happy. They should be very happy in terms of their life, in terms of what they're experiencing. They should be very happy. But Gela says these people say, I'm so unhappy, I'm so not happy. So Gela suggests they should experience some real problems. If they experience some real problems, then afterwards they realize how happy they actually are, how few problems they actually have.
In the morning, His Holiness during his teaching mentioned that our human body is made up of 36 unclean elements. Can you enumerate some or all of them?
So different types. So you know, just kind of describe the different types. You cannot describe all of them. Those 36, so to say, this is the first, this is the second, that's very difficult. But actually, you don't really need to enumerate them. Just look at your own body. It's pretty obvious the kind of uncleanliness. So you start with the hair, and then you got skin, and then you got the skull, and then you got a brain, and then you got eyes and ears and mucus and stuff in your mouth, etc. So it's probably more than 36. I mean, all these dirty kind of unclean substances. So actually this is pretty clear to us what our body is like, but if one thinks about it, when one reflects upon that, it's probably difficult to find someone who actually meditates on that in great detail. But if one does that, even though that is rare, but the person who reflects on the unclean nature of the body, they should balance this meditation with an understanding of the fact that the body doesn't, that unclean kind of state does not exist from its own side. So this balances our perception of the body, because otherwise there's danger that one gets disgusted with one's own body, one becomes unhappy with one's own body. And not just this, not just with regard to one's own body, but also with regard to the body of other people. If one then reflects upon the unclean nature of the body of other people, then one no longer feels any kind of closeness to them, and it will be difficult to have relationships with others. Which is why Geshe-la suggests to balance one's meditation by reflecting on one hand on the body being unclean, etc., but at the same time also understanding that the body does not exist from its own side. So this way one gets a balanced, good balanced kind of understanding of the nature of this body.
변동행위지 좁아지. 어떤지 samlo kwa tuwe.
So when one thinks of the unclean nature of this body, one thinks of the different parts of the body in that way, well, that reduces one's attachment. It reduces one's attachment, the kind of holding on to the body, etc. So this is reduced. And then understanding how the body really exists, then one utilizes it to benefit others. So instead of just the body becoming a condition for its own attachment, its own afflictions, instead one utilizes it with the motivation of benefiting others, wanting to become enlightened for the benefit of others, uses it for that purpose. So that is something, that's a useful way of applying this kind of practice.
Tena shinchigi michigi nizada yongache ni kira kambadi kisho ala tesho ni nge kumbumchi tebala na yawa samdangirwa kambadi la nese katsui negido punne mama ne ni tegmaro dima yimchi kira sanjui negi chapsandi kisho nge kumbumchi teba bumchi mawata tiji tebala katachiru teyara ta diso rumaji ludi mizawe na shingi samdang sadi da ludi tila tene taba chugure sanji goba chugure da kyune da pirirawa 지금으로 아니 디치도 베제 따야야 균이다 청청 균이 베제 땅 투베지
So for example, if someone came to Geshe-la or to approach Geshe-la and were to ask him, can you give me this house? Can you give me your building? And I give you money for it, I give you like a lakh of rupees, for example. Well, then Geshe-la will reflect upon, is this house beautiful? Is it useful for my own purpose? You know, how long I'm going to stay in this house, etc. So you definitely contemplate its importance. Whereas if someone says, I give you 100,000 rupees for your poo, then he's like, oh yeah, take it. No problem, take it, no problem. He will happily give it away. So basically here, if we understand how precious this body is, this body can take us to liberation. It can take us to liberation, so we utilize it well. And then if we can utilize it in order to be for the benefit of others, so without stinginess, we're able to work in that way for others. So we give this body, make it available in order to benefit or to be of welfare to other sentient beings.
There are some bodhisattvas who generate the determination of not becoming enlightened until all sentient beings are liberated. If the best way to benefit sentient beings is becoming a Buddha, how can this decision be beneficial?
제주선과 그것이 신진 탐지 답을 고마나이가 그 차는 마도 많이 상지 위해서 탐지셔야 아니 상지 쳔펜 루비아가 그 상지 고방 토비에 디가 탑스 약슈의 샤기 요베이나 안 딘제 somebody 펜도고 칸데스 네 펜도 요베이나스
다디 연주디여가 갈라고래 삼도 리치디 최시다 데미토 아니 그게 삼다의 리치 딘지 삼다용데 내가 산제 신의 심지는 편도 제스에 디마도 신다도 용서가 요만 야 삼도 리치디 카두기 천만기 와도 송 계죠 다 딘지 리라 다 산제세 다 고마 타도 디지 타도 자 치셔들어 다 심지는 하장기 제와 랑내게 답이 제와디 차음도 전에 아니 마산 게나마 진 케미도 콘수상 여러 제가 써야지 아니 콘수상 딱 이런 맞는 주의나 아니 수수 빈자 좀 같이 제와데 대주연에 딱지 야부지 라요나 내는 말하고도 신에 아니 콘설트 세 여러다 다디 지걸로 어제 아니 디지 야부지 여바이나 랑데 신 개치와 선도도 수신고 여인자 내는 콘설트 더 그렇잖아 난 슈를 같이 통해 되기도 세기 선도 거다지요 다디 소나미 공도 지디 삼도 심슈 하장기다 신의 저 체를 계절다 야 그런 미다가라기 야 삼도 릴레지네 땅에 가라 다 수수상 맞이는 디고에 가려 요마로 다가가 도를 찍고
Now with respect to generating the mind of enlightenment, the wish to become enlightened, well, in a sense, it's like one has a plan for the future. There's some kind of future plan one holds. So there is some who want to become enlightened first, and then have the plan, if you like, or the aspiration to take all other sentient beings to enlightenment. But then there are others who have a sense that first everyone else should attain enlightenment, and then I should be the one. So the latter kind of attitude arises from the sense of great love towards others, that one wants the best for others first, before one wants it for oneself. So this connects to, as to give an example, this is similar to when you have relatives or friends who you have great love, you love them very much, and you want them to have good things. But first you want them yourself, and then you want them for others. Whereas if your love for them, your love and care for them is so strong, it may be reversed. That first you want these good things for them, and then you want them for yourself. So with regard to the attitude of wanting others to become enlightened first, and then yourself follow, there's just too much love. You kind of give more love to others. You love others more than you love yourself, and therefore you want that best state for them. But if you think about it in a relaxed way, if you think about it really well, that's impossible. That unless you become enlightened, you can help others to become enlightened. So therefore, the realistic approach is to first become enlightened oneself and then benefit others or take others to the same state.
Thailand ki long kashi chi jamani mushile conditions are very short da be shobala muta be should be tamde da jamani mushile to really should to much way conditions.
Some Thai monks once asked His Holiness the Dalai Lama, at the time when Tibet lost its freedom, how did His Holiness, at that very time, how was His Holiness able to remain relaxed and calm? In response to the question by these Thai monks, His Holiness said that, of course, at that time the monasteries were destroyed. So many of the soldiers, many of the generals, the official kind of the army, etc. So they destroyed many of the monasteries. They took over the country and so forth. So they did so due to their afflictions. They were under the control of their afflictions, and they destroyed the monastery, killed monks and nuns, etc. So as a result of these afflictions, and in particular the negative actions, they will experience incredible, infinite kind of suffering. So only said he was aware of that, and therefore he generated great compassion for the perpetrators. Great compassion, and he made this wishful prayer. He prayed that all the negativity may it ripen upon myself. So he said, generating this much compassion for them, his mind just naturally became very calm. So he knew that this prayer, this aspiration, or this wish did not really help stop these soldiers from doing what they did, but it definitely pacified His Holiness's mind. So in that way, His Holiness felt relaxed and so forth, due to the generation of great compassion for the perpetrators.
당고 소소의 폐 힘이 소소의 폐만 된 개어지. 신다디 미소리.
So, if one gets angry, some people say getting angry when one is being harmed, it's like when one wants to retaliate, one takes some fire and then throws it at others. So before one is able to actually throw it, one burns one's own hand. And then thereafter, whether one hits the target or hits one's target or not, well, that's doubtful. One cannot say whether this throwing of fire will actually really harm the other person. Whereas on the other hand, so this is similar to anger. When we get angry with a person and then we act out of anger, initially the anger harms ourselves. And then whether this retaliatory action or whatever harmful action we engage in, whether it harms the other person, that is to be seen. If on the other hand, instead of getting angry, we generate love and compassion with the person who harms us, then it definitely benefits ourselves at first. So ourselves, we definitely feel pacified, we feel calm, and then thereafter, if we engage in positive actions to benefit this person, again, there's doubt, of course, can we benefit them or can we not? But with regard to benefiting ourselves, we definitely benefit ourselves. There's no doubt by generating love and compassion. So let's leave it for today. We meet again tomorrow at 1:30.